Hey guys, the Explorer of Horror here, the Horror Boy. Welcome back to some more reviews, and I know that I'm a bit late to this review, but I figured that since I had watched the movie, I might as well give it a review, and that is my late review on Valentine. And not on Valentine's Day, but I watched it. I got through it and watched it again. I haven't watched it in a long time. Figured why not talk about Valentine? It's still February, so still talk about it. And Valentine is a 2001 horror film. Gets a 4.9 on IMDb, directed by Jamie Blanks. And this director had also made Urban Legends. And I like Urban Legend. I don't know if I think I said Urban Legends. Urban Legends is the sequel, or the sequel. There's like two of them, but Urban Legend I like. I'm not a huge fan of it. I know it has a bit of a cult following, which is cool, but I'm not a fan of it. I would just say I like it. It's okay. But to be honest, I'm not a really big fan of slasher films from this time period because a lot of them were trying to be the next Scream. And I get it. You watch in the 80s, maybe you have some movies trying to be like Friday the 13th, but to me it seemed a lot less obvious than with these movies. You had I Know You Did Last Summer, which had sequels. You had Urban Legend. You had, just quite a bit of slasher films that were coming out at the time. Even Halloween was starting to go down that Scream route where, you had H2O and Resurrection. Even Chucky was trying to do the whole Scream thing, being clever, using comedy. Even the way Bride of Chucky looks. But this movie, to get into the plot real quick, it's a very basic plot. Basically, it starts out with this dance, and this nerdy kid is trying to ask different girls to dance with him. They all say no, except for one, who is the lead chick. She says that she might dance with him. Then he finds this other girl who does dance with him, and they end up making out. And these other kids come up and start bullying him and making fun of him. And the girl says that basically he was kissing her without her permission, and the whole dance starts to mock him, make fun of him, and bully him. And he, has a nosebleed, and it goes to the credits. And it's years later, and these 5 characters are being stalked and picked off one by a mysterious person. They don't know if it's the same person from before, or if it's a new person. And when you watch these kind of movies, you kind of ignore the origin because most of the time they don't follow that origin. I don't want to spoil these movies, but yeah, I'm not even going to say them. I was going to say some old slasher movies, but yeah, I do want you guys to go see these movies. I know I can't say the names of them now because I'd be spoiling them, but I was going to spoil them, but, they are slasher movies, and maybe some people out there haven't seen them yet. It's not a big deal, but let's just say there are slasher movies in the past that have done the origin and actually followed the origin through. And I can only remember about 2 movies that did that. And most of the time, you ignore that origin because it's kind of a false setup to make you think, oh, maybe it is that person getting revenge. But most of the time, it's not that person. But the movie goes through, you got some death scenes, and you have some reminiscent things from My Bloody Valentine. Like these different girls, they get like Valentine's Day cards that start out decent as a poem, and then by the end, they become like these morbid poems. And that kind of was taken from My Bloody Valentine. Maybe it was just a nod towards it. But yeah, they start getting picked off one by one. And to get into this film, I watched it about, 2-3 years ago for the first time, and I wasn't really that impressed with it. I just wasn't into the film. And I rewatched it, and really not much has changed with this movie. It's a decent slasher. It's just nothing that really stands out. And the fact that I'm saying that is kind of how I feel about the characters of the movie, is that there's really no standouts there. And I guess it kind of applies to other things too, like even the kills. There's not a standout kill to me. There's not a standout slasher here. There's not a standout character. There's not a standout plot. And I think that's what the movie is to me. It's just a really basic, mediocre slasher. And are there some things I like? The acting wasn't bad per se. I mean, you have Denise Richards, you have Marley Shelton, you have David Boreanaz. Not bad actors. Not bad. It's just, they're not great characters. Their characters really aren't much. Maybe the best character is Marley Shelton's character, Kate. Maybe. But at the same time, her as a lead and a slasher, really, it isn't a standout character. It really isn't. And I think that's what you really needed in this cast, and what you really needed in this, cast of characters, is you needed someone who stood out. And they were all kind of the same characters. I really didn't care about any of them. Their lines, their dialogue, just didn't get into the characters. And if it focused on other things like atmosphere and music and something else that it focused on, because even the kills aren't that bloody and gory. So you gotta have that witty, clever, if you're gonna try and be like the next Scream, you gotta have that cleverness, that comedy element to the movie to bring something to it. You gotta have the nods to other movies, which was really the only one I could really notice is the one to My Bloody Valentine. But to get into positives, like I said, there's not bad acting in this movie. The practical effects, when they're alright. The mask of the killer, the Cupid mask, I like the idea. I like the idea when he kills somebody, his nose bleeds. I like the idea of him using the bow and arrow sometimes to kill people. Okay, decent. I like that. Some of the soundtrack, I don't mind. And it's not really the score. It's more of just the songs they use in the movie. So parts of the soundtrack I don't mind. It's actually a pretty catchy soundtrack. But the score itself is very forgettable. There's not a memorable piece of music to this movie. But that's about it. I mean, it's got some decent acting, some decent kills. It's got some blood. It's got some very beautiful women in this movie. But yeah, it's just to get into the negatives. It's not very clever. It's very basic, by the numbers slasher movie. Granted, I couldn't guess who the killer was, but at the same time, I wasn't invested in the mystery. I wasn't totally into it. And the movie doesn't really have an atmosphere to me. I don't like how it's shot. Sometimes I don't mind that whole Scream look, but it doesn't work for some movies. Like Halloween H2O, it didn't work for me. Halloween Resurrection didn't work for me. However, a guilty pleasure of mine, I don't use that phrase very much, guilty pleasure. A guilty pleasure of mine is definitely Dracula 2000. I actually really enjoy that movie, but it's a guilty pleasure. There's definitely problems there, but I guess I didn't mind the look of that whole Scream look in that movie, but here I didn't like it. It didn't have an atmosphere to me. It wasn't creepy. It wasn't suspenseful. And that's another thing. It's not suspenseful. It's not gory. You don't really get any nudity, which you don't really need in a slasher movie, but without some gore in there, I mean, you could put something else to substitute, you know what I mean? Like, there's barely any blood, there's no really gory scenes. It's not really a fun movie, it's not really funny or witty or has any comedy. It's not suspenseful, it's not atmospheric, and it's not very mysterious to me either. I didn't get into the mystery, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I know it, I wouldn't say it has a cult following, because it actually wasn't that well received when it came out. But I know some people do like the movie, and that's cool and everything. It's just, to me, it's kind of a, in one ear, out the other kind of film. It's just, comes and goes. It's just a movie that doesn't really have much of a reveal. And when it does have the reveal, granted, I couldn't guess it, but it made the ending lame, where I was like, what? Like, this is how it ends? And just certain characters are really dumb in this movie and stupid. And a lot of them are, like, assholes, and I don't like the characters. And yeah, there's just, like, whereas with, and I'm going to make this comparison because this is another slasher film that's set in Valentine's Day. My Bloody Valentine had that comedy. My Bloody Valentine had that humor, had that... I like the Miner look better as a slasher than the Cupid look, which it's not bad, it's just I prefer the Miner outfit. I think it's creepier. The idea of the mines, I think, is creepier. The idea of this town called Valentine's Bluffs and the love triangle aspect. And that movie didn't have a bad cast either, or bad acting either. Not absolutely fantastic award-winning acting, but it wasn't bad acting. It had likable characters. It was a fast-paced movie. This one, very slow-paced, very sluggish. It's only an hour and a half, or maybe just above an hour and a half. But it's just not interesting. It's not moody. It's not atmospheric. It's not creepy. It's not gory. It's just, to me, there's not much there. There's not much to this movie. If anything, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's not terrible. Not a favorite of mine. It's just a mediocre, barely regular slasher movie. But yeah, if I had to rate it, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. I know there are some fans of this movie out there, which I might have made mad with that rating. I apologize. But yeah, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Has some good things, but a majority of things don't work in the movie. But overall, not terrible. Not atrocious. Not anything horrible. Just forgettable. Very, I'm running out of words to describe this movie. Just very mediocre, I guess. Very kind of blah. But yeah, anyways, thanks so much for watching my review on Valentine. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. What would you guys rate it? Definitely let me know your guys' thoughts in some of the comments below if you've seen it. But yeah, anyways, thanks so much for watching my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys later. Explorer 4 is out. Peace.